Hey guys, welcome back to Games of War. Today's episode, as you can see, is the PlayStation Vita collection. This was heavily requested. Over 500 votes were cast. You guys wanted it, so here it is. We've got a ton of games to get through, and that's not even counting the limited editions, so I will waste no further time. I hope you guys enjoy, and thank you for watching. So when Sony announced a new next-generation handheld, it was dubbed the NGP at the time, I couldn't have been more excited. I was a huge fan of the PSP, and I think a lot of people forget that the PSP was like the only handheld that's really gone up against Nintendo and actually succeeded. PlayStation Portable sold over 80 million units. It's quite an impressive number, especially going up against the juggernaut in the handheld department like Nintendo. And really the only complaints or requests that I heard over and over again about the PSP was a second analog stick. The Vita did that. It put a better screen on there, OLED. It looked damn impressive. The specs were freaking unreal. Now, as the hype grew near launch, many people were predicting that this was going to be the system where Sony finally got it right, and this was going to be the machine that would overtake Nintendo in the handheld market. Did that happen? Fuck no, it didn't happen. Not even close. The Vita is definitely one of the most misunderstood systems, very much like the Saturn. In my opinion, one of the most misunderstood machines of all time. It didn't get the love from its own maker. We never really saw its true potential. We saw glimpses of it with Uncharted and Killzone, what it was really capable of. It really is quite a remarkable handheld. The screen is stunning. It's very comfortable to hold. It feels like a solid piece of tech. I absolutely love the Vita. I was there since day one, bought it on launch. These are the systems that I own. I have the original black launch Vita OLED. I've got the white Assassin's Creed OLED. And then I got the blue Slim. I absolutely love the Vita, and it's fans like me, like you, that have actually kept the system alive much longer than it ever would have if it was up to Sony. So let's go ahead and celebrate the library of games, some of the excellent releases, and some of the great limited editions that are available for the Vita. So starting things off with the launch games that I picked up, and I still say to this day that the Vita had one of the strongest launches since the Dreamcast, man. Tons of amazing games right off the bat. Something for everyone, whether you were a fan of AAA games, action games, puzzle games, racing games. The launch lineup was really impressive. So the first game that I played was Deviance, and it was a free game with the system when I bought it. And it's kind of like Pilot Wings was for the Super Nintendo or the 3DS. A nice tech demo showpiece showing off what the front touchscreen and rear touch panel were capable of in terms of gaming. It's a very colorful platformer-esque kind of game. Instead of platforming precision controls with the control pad and buttons, you use the touchscreen and back touch panel. And it's really cool to kind of use the back touch panel to manipulate the land and guide these little almost Madball-like creatures along the environments. It's really bright and colorful. It's not deep. It's not going to win any awards, but it's definitely a nice, fun, relaxing showpiece for what the Vita was capable of with the touchscreen and the back touch panel. Definitely a solid game. Wipeout 2048 was the real deal. A super impressive launch game. This game had insanely good graphics, a buttery smooth frame rate, just a blistering sense of speed, excellent track design. This is futuristic racing done right. I never thought that I'd be playing a racing game that looked this damn good on a handheld. These graphics just pop off that OLED screen. Such an amazing collection of tracks, and the sense of speed is just freaking exhilarating. An amazing racing game. Wipeout is always delivered, and on the Vita it's no exception. A technical masterpiece and a tour de force on the Vita. Army Corps of Hell is a really interesting title. It was an exclusive built from the ground up for the Vita from Square Enix, so they definitely were supporting the system early on. It wasn't the most impressive in terms of visuals, but it was pretty cool in terms of its concept. Almost like Pikmin meets Overlord. You play as the King of Hell who's trying to reclaim his place, and you have control of these little goblins. So think very much like Pikmin, how you can control your Pikmin and send them out and do things. It doesn't have quite the depth of the levels of Pikmin where you're doing this insane puzzle solving, switching groups of Pikmin on the fly. It's nothing like that. It's much less puzzle solving and much more action. There is some strategy involved in which of your goblin units you choose to send out. Some are more powerful at certain things. So there's definitely a little bit of strategy. It can definitely be humorous as you sick your goblins and trolls en masse on enemies and watch them like shred, claw, and tear them apart and blood flying everywhere. It's definitely violent. All the while, this death metal soundtrack is just pulsating in the background. Definitely a dark metal tone. It's a great original game on the Vita. Definitely worth owning. Luminous Electronic Symphony is a follow-up to the original Luminous on the PSP, and this is a freaking amazing puzzle game. I've never been much into puzzle games, but this one is really enjoyable. It's like watching a mini rave in the palm of your hand. Lights flashing, great techno soundtracks pumping. Very much like Tetris, where you kind of line up blocks and you kind of match colors. There's like a wave that comes across the screen every so often and clears the stack, so you've kind of got to match up the same colors, try to build up as many combos as you can. When that wave comes along, it's going to take away all the ones you've matched up, and you just kind of keep going, and as you progress further and further, different skins and colors and different music comes on. Definitely a tour de force, addictive as hell, a great puzzle game. Luminous is highly recommended. Next up, we've got the big dog, Uncharted Golden Abyss, and this was an amazing launch game, and I kind of got irritated with what I was hearing at the time. There was a lot of people complaining about, oh, the touchscreen elements are forced and the back touch panel is tacked on, and Never mind the fact that we're playing an Uncharted game in the palm of our hands that rivals the PS3 versions in terms of graphics. This is the most stunning handheld game that I had seen at the time. I swear you walk to the edge of the environments and look over the cliffs and you just see jungles expanding on in the back, and you see waterfalls, and you see birds flying through the sky. This is a stunning achievement on the Vita. The graphics still to this day hold up so well. It looks so impressive on the Vita. I can't say enough good things about Uncharted Golden Abyss. I absolutely adored my time with it. Dynasty Warriors next. Now, I always love a good Dynasty Warriors game, and I definitely wanted to see this original entry in the Vita and see how many enemies the Vita could pack on screen at one time without slowing down, and just see how impressive it was for a handheld. And I wasn't let down. Tons of enemies on the screen at once, tons of content, levels. You're just slicing through hundreds and hundreds and hordes of enemies. The combos go on forever, the bodies are flying everywhere. Dynasty Warriors never lets me down, and I got exactly what I wanted from this title. It's a great launch game on the Vita. Ninja Gaiden Sigma Plus and Ninja Gaiden Sigma Plus 2. These are ports of some amazing games, probably some of the best combat ever in an action game. Ninja Gaiden is so freaking good and so challenging and so addicting in terms of blocking and those counters. No button mashing, man. You gotta know your shit when you play these games because they will hand you your ass. The first Ninja Gaiden appeared on the Xbox, like Ninja Gaiden Black, and then it was ported over to the PS3, like Ninja Gaiden Sigma, and this is kind of an enhanced port from that. It looks really good on the Vita, really impressive on the OLED screen. The playability's there. Absolutely love Ninja Gaiden. And then the second one, for me, I actually like this version a lot. I played the original 360 version, and I forgot how goddamn gory this game is, man. As you are hacking away at these enemies, you're going to see freaking arms flying off, legs flying off, clumps of flesh like splatting on the wall and running down, and blood squirting everywhere. Now the PlayStation 3 version toned down the blood and got rid of most of it for some reason and added this like green mist. It was really weird. This version puts all the gore back in, aside from the over-the-top blood spraying, but you're still going to see chunks fly. You'll still have Ryu flicking the blood off of his weapons. Man, this is a freaking amazing game. I love the Ninja Gaiden series, and they look great and play great on the Vita. A little bit of frame rate problems, but overall, man, just great ports. If you're a fan of platformers, you've definitely got a lot to love in the Vita, for sure. There's some great ports, some better than others on the first three. I call these the big three from Sony. Insomniac, Naughty Dog, and Sucker Punch. They made three of the finest platforming series in the PlayStation. Ratchet & Clank, Jak and Dexter, and Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus. The Ratchet & Clank series has always been my personal favorite of the three. Take a science fiction theme, throw it around a likable cast of characters, two great main characters in Ratchet & Clank, expertly voiced, that play off each other well, some great supporting cast characters like Captain Quark, and some of the most hilarious villains ever, Skid McMarks, the hoverboard guy, and then throw in like planetary travel, going from planet to planet, and each planet you get on there's different objectives, platforming levels to explore, all kinds of awesome guns that are super creative, super fun to use, and you can level them up and grow them stronger the more you use them. Just really creative stuff. The voice acting and storytelling is spot on. A lot of humor in this, but always a well-told tale. Quality is second to none. Platforming action doesn't get any better for me. Ratchet & Clank is the pinnacle of platforming in my opinion. Naughty Dog had one hell of a ride on the PlayStation 2 with the Jak and Dexter series. The game's definitely changed quite a bit as the series went on. The original game was just a straight up, honest to goodness, very colorful, collect-a-thon platformer. One thing it did have is a very strong cast of characters, great voice acting, almost like an open world feel to it. I mean, and this game was super impressive early on in the PlayStation 2's life. You could see things off in the distance and you could go there, no load times, all one huge cohesive world, very colorful, cartoony. The game was great, had great platforming elements, very similar to Crash Bandicoot and some of the platforming moves. A great throwback to that. It's an amazing series. Jak and Dexter were great characters. The second game in the series kind of flipped it upside down. You had Jak and Dexter kind of like in this GTA almost mini-inspired city where you could like carjack flying vehicles and get on there and fly around the city, open world-ish, take different missions. It got very challenging. Jak 2 was really freaking hard. A much darker theme, darker tone. Jak was a darker character. It was a great game, but just definitely very different. The third game kind of brought it full circle out in the desert theme. Jak had been banished, and there is all kinds of badass desert vehicles to ride on, all kinds of great platforming, a great setting, great atmosphere. The third game might just be my favorite in the series, although I really do like the back-to-basics, simple platforming of the first game. But Jak 3 was a great technical achievement, a great setting. I love those dune vehicles out in the desert. There's definitely been some talk of some frame rate issues in the Jak and Dexter collection, but man, I don't notice it. I'm having too much fun playing the games on the handheld Vita. A great collection of games. Now from Sucker Punch, we've got the Sly Cooper collection and then Sly Cooper Thieves in Time. This was very different from Jak and Dexter and Ratchet and Clank. It still had that same beautiful cartoony aesthetic, Great characters, great cast of characters, excellent voice acting. The story was really well told. These games kind of played up on that big robbery heist feel with a lot of stealth elements in the gameplay, but also a lot of great platforming, a lot of variety in the different levels and different objectives you could do. Sly was a great character. His supporting cast, Bentley, Murray, all great fun. The platforming was spot on. I really enjoyed the change of pace in the Sly Cooper series. Sneaking along the rooftops, avoiding detection. It was a great game. The new entry blew me away, Sly Cooper Thieves in Time. This was a great new game that brought the series forward in so many different ways. Playing as Sly Cooper and going back in time and playing all of his distant relatives in different time periods, and the overall open world map was really fun to explore. Going back and playing the different characters and different play styles was second to none. There's all kinds of great gameplay elements in this, different characters to play, all likable past characters that are all thieves, and it's just a great freaking game, great platforming, phenomenal visuals. It looks amazing on the Vita. This was bringing Sly Cooper into the new generation done right. From Media Molecule, we've got Little Big Planet on the PS Vita, and this is honestly one of the strongest entries in the series, probably my favorite entry. It's got the best storyline hands down of all the Little Big Planet games that I've played, and there's just something about the Vita. It lends itself so well to this style of game. I've been able to use a touchscreen and back touch panel to try to bring down the menus and select all the accessories for Sackboy, deck them out. It's really easy to customize. If you enjoy stuff like creating your own levels and trying to make challenging things for other people to play, and you enjoy a good platformer with physics-based action, definitely check out Little Big Planet. It's charming. Sackboy is a really likable character. It's just overall got a great theme and a great look. It's a really nice platformer. A brand new IP, Tearaway. This is creativity through and through. I gotta say, they've used every aspect of the Vita perfectly. This game was ported to the PS4, but man, at the time when I was playing this, it seemed like such a perfect fit for the Vita, and I really do like this version the best, using that back touch panel and the touchscreen. Basically, the world is made out of paper. It's a giant paper craft world, and you manipulate this paper world using the back touch panel and the front touchscreen in so many different creative ways. It actually adds to the gameplay. It doesn't detract. You play as like a little messenger, like a little letter character, and everything is just so bright and detailed in the way that the system is used, going through the levels. And overall, man, I gotta say, a stunning game. Media Molecule really shows their creativity in this. This was a great original adventure. Definitely a must-own on the Vita. Next up, we've got Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends. In my opinion, some of the finest 2D side-scrolling platformers ever made. The first one brought Rayman back in a big way. Beautiful stages that were hand-drawn, colorful graphics. The soundtrack was amazing. Rayman controlled like a dream. He learned new abilities as the levels went on, and you use those abilities to platform through the levels that got pretty challenging later on. A great, simple 2D side-scrolling gameplay done right. Controls were perfection. Absolutely loved Rayman's comeback in 2011. And the sequel was announced a couple years later, and it was a Wii U exclusive, and a lot of people were upset. And then time went on, the Wii U didn't do so well, so the game was announced for multiple platforms. But this game was kind of built around the Wii U's like touchpad and stylus control and being able to use that function. So the Vita version is what made out the best in my opinion, because it kept all of the touchscreen elements of the Wii U original, and you didn't have to use a stylus. So it translated really well to the Vita. It plays great on the system. The new music levels were a huge bonus. It was a lot of fun to play. A great sequel done right. It's crazy to think back in 2011 when Rayman Origins first came out. It was before the whole retro-inspired onslaught of games that we have today. We think nothing of playing an underpowered, 8-bit looking dated game on a powerful hardware like the PlayStation 4. But back in 2011, when this first came out, people did not want to pay $60 for a 2D side-scroller, and it did not sell well in the beginning. I remember a lot of people were saying, $60 for a 2D side-scroller? No thanks. And it wasn't until the strong word of mouth got around that how good this game actually was, and fans started picking it up, that it actually caught on. But at first it was no dice, man. Which brings us to Shovel Knight, and in my opinion, Shovel Knight is the game that kind of took the whole 8-bit retro aesthetic and made it popular again, and made it good to play a game that was older and dated looking, but had mechanics that were rooted in modern conveniences, man. This was a game that was done right. It had a great story, great gameplay. The characters were all awesome. Shovel Knight was cool as hell, and they supported this so much since release, being able to play as like the Plague Knight and then Spectre Knight, which was awesome. All the different stories that interlap, and then the recently released King of Cards is really fun to play. Shovel Knight has a great cast of characters. All the levels are designed to play to their characters' strengths, and it's just a great throwback to a platformer of days of old, and it works well. Shovel Knight is the original OG, and it has not been topped since, in my opinion. Next up, we've got a couple of games in the Oddworld series. We've got Munch's Odyssey HD and Stranger's Wrath HD, and these are HD ports of original Xbox games, which was crazy at the time because PlayStation had always been home to the Oddworld games. It was announced early on when the Xbox was first launching that Microsoft had acquired the rights to the Oddworld games, and Munch's Odyssey was now an Xbox launch game, which was a really bright spot early on. This was a great platformer, kind of puzzle-solving mixture. Playing as Abe had that traditional Oddworld humor, the burping, the farting, being able to communicate with his fellow Oddworld brethren and have them follow him and puzzle-solve different elements of the levels. Platforming was great. a great stage variety, a great story being told, playing as Munch too, being able to swim underwater really fast, and his levels were really cool. Overall, just a really great creative game. The atmosphere definitely nailed that kind of alien, different world feel, playing as two different creatures, and it was just a lot of fun to combine the elements, and they're great characters with a lot of personality. Now, Stranger's Wrath came out and really changed up the pace of the Oddworld games. This was a straight-up action shooter, platformer, all into one, seamless transition between third-person platforming and first-person shooting. The Stranger was a dark, gruff, badass character. He was a bounty hunter, and you had this live ammo that you'd shoot out of this crossbow, and they were like these little critters you'd load up, and they'd always be saying something super funny, a lot of personality to each live ammo. So much fun to play and use these different ammos to shoot and capture bounties, and the guards that you'd be hunting always had some funny shit to say. That trademark Oddworld humor was alive and well in this game. It was a great playing game. It looked amazing at the time. The Stranger could run on all four legs. He was a great character. I just had a lot of fun playing Stranger's Wrath, and it was a great exclusive lineup to the Xbox library. Looks even better here in HD. Next up on the Vita, we've got the God of War collection. This is God of War 1 and 2, a port of the PlayStation 3 collection, and a port of old PS2 games, and I would love to have seen a much more strong presence from Kratos in God of War on the Vita. I would love the all-new entry in the series, but sadly we never got it. I'm thankful we did get the collection, but it's such a missed opportunity not having a new God of War and seeing more of Kratos on the Vita. Next, we've got a new entry in the Resistance series, and I was a huge fan of the original Resistance trilogy on the PS3. Sadly, this one was handed off to a different company, I believe Nihilistic. It wasn't made by Insomniac, so it definitely suffered. It was still an okay game. It has some really creative guns, what the series is known for, but it's pretty standard first-person shooter action here. The graphics aren't that great. It's okay. I hoped for more out of the Resistance series. Killzone definitely delivered, done by Guerrilla. This is a fantastic example of what the Vita is capable of. Much like Uncharted, this game looks freaking insane. One of the best looking games on a handheld ever. Playability is great. A great campaign, great multiplayer. This is truly an exceptional first-person shooter and probably the best handheld first-person shooter that was available up to this time. It still holds up great and a really amazing package. Assassin's Creed Liberation was a big deal at the time. It was a spin-off of a main franchise, Assassin's Creed Part 3, and it was a big AAA game brought to the Vita, exclusive at the time. It was a full-fledged, full-blown Assassin's Creed game in the palm of your hand. It looked amazing. The open world was huge. The character was great. It was a great story told in this game. There were some graphical problems here and there. It wasn't quite up to the console level, but it was damn close, and it was a huge game. Super impressive for the time. I've always been a big Assassin's Creed fan, and this was a great entry on the Vita. And at the time, it was exclusive, and it was a step in the right direction, showing that the Vita was going to get support from big-name developers and publishers. I was all in. Now, Gravity Rush is definitely what the Vita needed more of. Love from Sony, a beautiful new franchise created from the ground up for the Vita, exclusive at the time. Kat was an awesome character, using her abilities to manipulate gravity and fly through the air and walk up buildings, kind of like an open world superhero game, and it would look beautiful in the Vita. The world was huge, it played great, a great storyline, production value was through the roof. Vita definitely needed more of this. It needed more original properties, games you couldn't get anywhere else. Super impressive at the time. Gravity Rush eventually got ported to the PS4, and a sequel came out for the PS4, but its home was the Vita originally, and it was a great AAA game, and definitely more of this was needed. Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate was a really cool side story spin-off to the original Arkham trilogy on the PS3 and 360. This one used a 2.5D perspective and kind of a Metroidvania gameplay style. It looked amazing on the Vita, great production value, Batman's gadgets were all there. It used the same combat system from the original Arkham games, so it's got that perfect timing-based combat system that is reversible, all kinds of cool combos and death animations. This is a Batman game done right, a lot of fun to play, a great side story to the Arkham series. And then Borderlands 2, which I haven't had too much time to play. I really enjoyed the Borderlands games on the consoles. I heard this port wasn't as good as the originals, but I'm a fan of it, so I saw it cheap and I picked it up. I haven't really had time to play it, but Borderlands 2 is a great game. If you're a fan of action RPGs, the Vita definitely has you covered. The Ys series, which saw quite a resurgence a few years back on the PSP, we got some great box sets on that console. Thankfully continued on the Vita. This is Memories of Celceta. This came out first. This was an exclusive at the Vita at the time. It eventually went to the PS4 years later, but for a while there, this was an exclusive. The only way to play it was on the Vita. Then we got Lacrimosa of Dana, and then finally Ys Origins. And I gotta say, if you haven't played an Ys game, you definitely have to do yourself a favor and check the series out. It's got lightning fast gameplay. The combat is razor sharp. Playing as Adol and his friends is always a joy. The stories are great. It's got great soundtracks in each game. Metal soundtracks, great fast-paced tempo. Everything about these games comes together to form a quintessential action RPG experience, switching characters on the fly, which some don't prefer. A lot of the older games have you playing as just Adol. Overall, just a great action RPG series. Varied locations you travel to. The graphics all look really good on the handheld. A great combat. I gotta say a standout was Lacrimosa of Dana, probably my favorite in the series, man. This game has got it all. Shipwrecked on an island. It's got elements of town building, it's got exploration, it's got mystery, intrigue, so much depth to this game. Finding lost party members and bringing them back to your home base and watching it expand and grow. Further venturing out into the island and its mysteries. One hell of a game. Lacrimosa of Dana is one not to be missed. Overall, the series in general is just fantastic throughout. Another epic set of action RPGs, we've got the Vanillaware games, and if you've watched any of my past videos, you know just how much I adore this studio and the work they put out. One of my favorite games of all time is a remake of the PlayStation 2 classic Odin Sphere, playing as different characters, Gwendolyn, Mercedes, the Puka Prince, Oswald. Each of these different perspectives you play through, and it all forms one giant storyline full of deception, intrigue, love, jealousy, betrayal. It is such a damn good game. It looks so impressive on the Vita. Words cannot express seeing it in motion just how good it looks. The combat has been refined and retooled to play beautifully. Overall, it's just such an amazing game. It's done so well. It kept me playing to the very end. One of my favorite experiences ever in an action RPG. Odin Sphere is one not to be missed. Muramasa is an action RPG that's a remake of an old Wii game, and I'm pretty sure this is still exclusive to the Vita to this day. A great action RPG with lightning quick gameplay, different blades you can switch from on the fly, and it's just an amazing feudal Japanese tale. The environments are stunning, almost a watercolor style look to them. They are all so varied and so interesting to explore. The combat is the highlight, razor sharp, it never gets old. Absolutely love the story in this. The lightning quick combat with a great story. You've got a winner with Muramasa, an action RPG not to be missed. Now, Dragon's Crown is kind of a throwback to an old Dungeons & Dragons hack and slash co-op experience. Definitely a lot of fun to play, picking out your class of character and then taking them into the dungeons and grinding for better gear and loot. Overall, an amazing experience. The visuals look insanely good. Enemy variety is spectacular. It plays great. It's a great homage to older beat-em-ups and dungeon crawlers. Absolutely fell in love with the voice acting, the art style, the choice of characters, the character classes. An amazing beat-em-up and so much fun to play co-op with friends. Dragon Crown is not to be missed. A stellar beat-em-up. Next up, you've got the Trails of Cold Steel series. This is Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2. This is quite possibly my favorite JRPG series outside of Tales and Lunar. My love for this series goes way back. As you can see, I have all the original PSP entries and the original Trails in the Sky on the PSP. This just takes the formula to the next level. Two favorite entries in this series. This game expands upon the original ideas in Trails in the Sky and the original Legend of Heroes games. A massive undertaking of a game that will keep you busy for 50 hours in each adventure. This game has you playing as elite level high school students. Kind of a mix of Persona and almost like a Suikoden type of game. I say Persona in the social link elements. You go to class, you take exams, you spend the day in school socializing with your peers. You have free days where you're able to take side quests, you're able to bond with your classmates, strengthening your relationships, and that strength also extends itself into battle, in which the battles are absolutely amazing. One of the best parts of the game. It's got a Grandia-like timing wheel to cancel out attacks and attack on the fly. Outside of spending time in the class and going on your free days, you've also got field trip days where you go and explore the world, and that's where the meaty quests come in. A great storyline, top-notch writing and voice acting. The series deserves all the praise it gets. One of the true traditional JRPG series that's still going strong today. This game series has it all. Definitely don't miss the Trails of Cold Steel series. Next up, we've got Summon Night 6, and this is from Victor Ireland, Gaiden Works, formerly Working Designs, and this is the closest thing I've seen approaching to the old days of Working Designs packaging. Beautiful artwork all over the box, some great extras. This is one hell of a collector's edition. Unfortunately, it's a game series that a lot of the entries didn't make it over here, and that's what the problem with this game is. It's a great strategy RPG, and it's got a pretty cool story, if not a little weird. You're playing as a character alone in this land, and stuff falls from the sky, whether it's food or objects or weapons or other people. Kind of odd. There's always something falling from the sky, and he's going to explore and seeing what it is. And a lot of these characters that show up are from previous Summon Night games, and the problem is it's kind of a celebration of all of the past characters from Summon Night games. We hardly got any of those over here in the States, so a lot of these characters I don't have any connection with, or I don't see the significance or importance of them coming in when it's kind of a big deal, when it should be. But I don't even know who the hell these characters are, so a really missed opportunity there. I'd like to see maybe a collection come over and get more familiar with the series and the cast of characters. The game at its core is a strategy RPG, and the battles are pretty standard for a turn-based strategy RPG. The storyline and presentation takes up another big chunk of the game, and that's a pretty big focus here. There's a lot of dialogue, a lot of voice acting. It's all really well done. The characters do a good job in English of acting their parts and sounding convincing. Overall, a quality game. A lot of love was put into this. It's just unfortunate that a lot of this material is lost on us US players because we haven't had a chance to grow with the series, so kind of a missed opportunity. I'd like to see more from Gaiden Works, and definitely some beautiful packaging. Next up, we've got Grand Kingdom, and this is the Grand Edition, and this comes with this box and another box I have put away just filled with like posters and pins and soundtracks and artwork and so many extras that comes in this beautiful special edition. I thought this game was the second coming of Dragon Quest. I couldn't have been happier. The best part about it at the time is a double-edged sword now, because I can't recommend this aspect of the game because it's no longer supported, the online mode. There was so much stuff you could do online in this game. It felt like the world was constantly living and breathing. You could send out war contracts, members of your party to go out and strengthen the kingdom, strengthening its defense, making its systems more powerful. You had the online barracks where you could go and do research. You could check in, get daily rewards, and promote generals and captains. It was such an amazing touch, and it really added so much to the game while it was still functional. Unfortunately, the online component is no longer there. However, I can still recommend this game in full. It's still well worth it for the single player campaign alone. Overworld Exploration is done like on a map, and it shows your characters walking. It's almost like a board game that shows you advancing through the map. You're interrupted along the way to take place in battles, and these battles are highly strategic. You're able to switch between 3 planes of attack, and there's all kinds of strategy incorporated using archers to keep enemies at distance. You've got powerful sword attacks, all kinds of different gear and equipment to level up. The battles are fast, fun, frantic, very addictive. Great storyline, so much backstory. There's so much information in this limited edition. Books filled with all of the kingdoms and different rulers. Just so much love was put into this game, and it definitely shows. So much content still, even with the online missing, there's still so much to do in Grand Kingdom. A massive RPG that harkens back to Dragon Force, and that's a win in my book. Tokyo Xanadu was a pleasant surprise for me personally. I wasn't really following this game. I hadn't really heard much about it. It kind of crept up and came out, and I saw it, and I was like, oh my god, a new action RPG from the makers of Ys, and that's exactly what this game reminds me of, is a cross between Legend of Heroes and Ys. It looks exactly like Trails of Cold Steel in terms of visuals, and the gameplay is very much like Ys. Fast-paced action RPG combat. You're able to switch characters on the fly. Certain character elements are stronger against certain enemies. If anything, it's the story that's kind of mediocre in this game. It's been done to death. It's got portals opening up all over the city, and these portals seem to be linked to the citizens' personal turmoil. So in essence, the citizens' own personal turmoil and inner thoughts are wreaking havoc on their own city. It's up to you and your band of party members to save it. That is done via the dungeons, which are the highlight of the game. All kinds of great boss battles, great enemies. The combat is definitely a highlight. The other part of the game has you exploring the city, taking on side quests, bonding with your characters and party members and making your bond stronger in battle. Definitely a 2-part scenario taking place in the city, bonding with your characters, taking side quests, moving the story along, and then venturing into the dungeons to take out the enemy hordes. Overall, this game blew me away. It reminded me of a modern Ys game with elements of other games that I played and loved, and that's a good thing. Another high-quality game from Falcom, and a great limited edition here too. It's got some great contents. Next up, you've got a couple of unique limited editions. These games take place in the same universe, part of the same series. Trillion God of Destruction and Make-You Labyrinth of Death. Trillion really caught me off guard. I wasn't prepared for just how much I would like this game. It's a very odd mashup of strategy RPG gameplay mixed with some dating sim elements and some small roguelike elements. In the game's opening, the Demon King has just been slaughtered by Trillion, who is a boss with 1 trillion hit points and damn near unkillable. The Demon King is so distraught and so upset, he makes a deal. In exchange for his soul, he is brought back to life and partnered with 6 demon lords to try to band together, get enough power built up, and take on Trillion and defeat him once and for all. Now, key members of the Disgaea team worked on Trillion, and the humor shows through in spades. This has got some of the funniest voice acting I've ever heard in my life. The Demon King is super pissed. He says the funniest shit I've ever heard in a video game. His voice acting is done so convincingly. The battle system is intricate and turn-based. It works wonders with the setting, taking place in the 6 layers of hell. It's got that whole Overlord hierarchy of hell, demons, servants, humor that's in Disgaea down pat in this, and the voice acting just conveys it so beautifully. Very challenging and so humorous at the same time. I fell in love with Trillion. Make-You is a first-person dungeon crawler set in the same universe. Now, in this game, the stars have stopped rotating, causing the world to be blanketed in eternal darkness. Now, you play as a girl named Estra. She is a demon machine soldier girl who must band together with 4 robotic guardians to conquer these 4 towers. After defeating the gods in these 4 towers, it will in turn wind up the celestial screw, which will in turn cause the stars to rotate once again, thus ending the darkness. What I liked most about this game is the humor and voice acting, all done in English like Trillion. It's so well done, the dialogue is so well written, and you've got these awesome guardians that come into the dungeons with you. So you've got 3 characters that you play as, along with 3 guardians, and just go through these dungeons and just beat the shit out of all these enemies. The combat is definitely the highlight. The way your characters and the guardians can play off each other and use special moves and chain attacks. The overall setting and humor was just fantastic in this as well. A couple of great games that are honestly some of the funniest games that I've played. Definitely check them out. Cosmic Star Heroine is a nice throwback to 16-bit RPGs of past. It's got a great science fiction futuristic setting. You play as Alyssa, who is a spy for a giant corporation, and she gets double-crossed early on, and then she goes on the run, and the story unfolds from there. It's all really easy to follow. It makes for a nice, pleasant easy playing experience. You're not going to be bogged down in horrible, overly complicated systems. A really nice battle system, nice and fast, turn-based, insane amount of special attacks per character. The game features great settings and locations, and overall a really nice cohesive game world. Really pulls off that science fiction futuristic vibe very well. A nice throwback to a simpler time in RPGs. Cosmic Star Heroine is a great adventure worth taking. Let's not forget this beautiful limited edition from Limited Run Games. So many cool extras in this. A great package, a great box set to have. If you're a fan of visual novels, point-and-click style adventure games, and the different offshoots that come with the genre, you're definitely going to be at home with the Vita. One of my favorite series of all time is the 999 or the Xero Escape series. This is an amazing series. I played the first game on the DS when it was called 9 Persons, 9 Hours, 9 Doors. And it was originally supposed to be like a standalone game. They had no plans to develop a full franchise out of it. Fan reaction was so strong and the game was so well received by players that it kind of forced the developer's hand into continuing the series. So the plot sees the main character Junpei as he's abducted by this mysterious character named Zero, who is evidently behind his kidnapping, and along with 8 other characters, and forces them all to take part in this life or death struggle called the Nonary games. The first game in the series completely blew me away. I had played nothing like it up until that point. The game is basically broke up into 2 different sections. There's the visual novel sections and the escape scenario sections. And it starts off with you in a fight for life and death, a struggle to escape the room, puzzle solving, looking for clues, figuring your way out of it. And once you solve these escape scenarios and you make it out, you feel a genuine sense of reward and accomplishment. At first it seems they're all strangers, but as the story progresses and weaves its tale, the different branching story paths and multiple endings that can be achieved. The Vita version is an upgraded version of the original. This is the Xero Escape 999, and it's got updated voice acting. It's got an updated flowchart, which is essential for this game. One of the things that was very much lacking on the DS version. It basically keeps all your story paths and choices you've made and the storyline in which it's progressing very readable on a chart for you to follow. And I really can't stress how much this game kept me on the edge of my seat while playing throughout. The escape scenarios mixed with the storytelling was such a brilliant move. There hasn't been a game like it. It's just so unique and so visceral in its storytelling and some of the graphic images you'll see. The second game in the series took the concept from the first and ran with it with a new batch of 9 characters, brilliant storytelling, excellent puzzles, different branching paths, multiple endings. All of the goodness from the first was repeated in the second. The third game upped the ante in terms of production value. No longer was there just 2D hand-drawn. It was all cinematic, cutscenes, full voice acting. This series is one not to be missed. I guarantee you, if you're a fan of visual novels, if you like suspenseful games, you like storytelling, dark stories, great characters, definitely check out the 999 Xero Escape series. They are fantastic games and not to be missed. The Dank and Ropa series is another favorite of mine and an example of the visual novel adventure style gaming genre evolving to the next level. This is an incredibly dark series. It's got such a twisted storyline. On the first game, I was completely blown away. Once again, you play as a student who is transferring to Hope's Peak Academy, and this is like for the best of the best students, and you have no idea why you're there because you're kind of average. You're there with like a track star, a baseball star, fashionista, all of these students that are excelled at something, and you're just kind of this average guy. What starts off as a normal trip to a new school is quickly turned upside down. You realize you are now trapped in this school with this evil murderous bear, and the only way to graduate is to murder your classmates and get away with it. If it sounds dark and twisted, it's because it is. I could not believe what I was playing when I first started. Each time a student is murdered and a crime scene is discovered, you go into kind of like a Phoenix Wright style like trial where the students discuss amongst themselves who they think did it, present evidence, fire truth bullets. It's increasingly sadistic as it goes on. It is so involved with its storytelling. You really feel for all of these different characters, and the level of intrigue and mystery is second to none. The visuals really play into the overall theme and vibe from the game. It's such a dark, twisted tone. I couldn't get enough of the first game, and the crime scenes, there's the shocking murders, people you think you're getting to know and then all of a sudden they're dead. The second one is very much like the first. Instead of the class setting, you're taken to a tropical island under the guise of a field trip by Usami, who is like this maniacal rabbit who claims this is just an innocent field trip to help the students get to know each other better. Of course, Monokuma interferes once again and turns it into a killing field. Very much like the dark tone of the first. On this tropical island, it just offsets the dark tone very well. I enjoyed the second game thoroughly. Great writing and storytelling once again. Excellent puzzle solving and the clues and the murder scenes. I can't gush enough about the first two. They are amazing games. The third one changes things up considerably. It's no longer like a first-person exploration point-and-click style. It is a third-person like action hack-and-slash game. You play as 2 characters who are related to characters from the first and second installments. And it's a really strange game where Monokuma has kind of overtaken the city and these crazy murderous children are running throughout. I really didn't dig this as much as the first 2 games. It's still a cool game and there's really good storytelling at hand here. I just preferred the murder, crime scenes, and suspense of the first 2 games. Not a bad game by any means, but definitely a change of pace and something very different. The final game, Killing Harmony, is kind of a throwback to the first 2 games, very loosely based on the Hope's Peak Academy storyline, taking place at the Ultimate Academy for the Gifted Juveniles. In Killing Harmony, the gameplay is divided up once again, like the first two, where half the time you're going to be exploring your environment, getting to know the characters, talking to them, getting to know their personalities and traits, then discovering the crime scenes, seeing who's been murdered, what's been taking place, what evidence is there, and then going to the class trials. It's a gameplay element that has remained strong through 3 games. It's a fascinating gameplay mechanic and hook, and I absolutely loved my time in these twisted halls, solving these twisted murders, accusing different students, getting evidence. A fantastic series that is not to be missed, very original and very captivating through the end. One of my favorite games that came out over the last couple years in the visual novel genre is definitely Root Letter. This is the Pen Pal edition, a lot of cool extras in this. In this game you play as a protagonist that you can name yourself, and you were a pen pal years ago to this girl, Aya Fumino, and you kind of bonded and got really close over the course of these letters. Years go by and you're moving out your office, ready to start a new job, and you find the stack of letters and you kind of go back over the letters and reminisce and remember writing to this girl. You found a letter that was unread, not postmarked, and you never read that before. You never remember it being there. So you read this letter, and in it, it's very shocking. This girl confesses that she's just committed murder, and she's going to be going away for some time, and this will be the last time you hear from her. Now, shocked and intrigued by this letter that you never knew existed, you're reading for the first time, you decide to travel to her hometown and start asking some questions to her former friends and associates, and it's pretty apparent once you arrive, no one wants to talk about this girl, no one wants to remember the past. They're very cold to you. They don't want to give you any helpful information. It's up to you from there to unravel this mystery of what happened to this girl. Was she killed? Did she kill somebody? What shocking crime occurred? And it's just a very enjoyable game, traveling to different locations, meeting different characters, all of the characters that she spoke of in the letters you meet, her circle of friends. Just a very intriguing game. There's mystery around every corner, a great storyline, very well written, kind of some Phoenix Wright elements going on where you can kind of interrogate people and press them for clues and different answers. Overall, a great visual novel. So Read Only Memories 2064 and Valhalla are definitely a couple of unique visual novel graphic adventure games. Read Only Memories 2064 is proudly proclaimed by the developers as being kind of like a throwback to Snatcher, very much inspired by it, and I can definitely see Snatcher's DNA running throughout the game. Taking place in the Christmas season of 2064, you play as an investigative reporter slash journalist who is looking into the disappearance of this guy Hayden, who is a top up-ranking official in this Parallax company. Now, this Parallax company is responsible for building these ROMs, small machines that are able to assist in everyday life, which are basically taking the place of smartphones and computers in the future. You're being helped out by the man that's missing his own personal ROM, which is kind of a prototype that isn't on the market yet. It's a sentient machine that is able to kind of have conversations, form thoughts, and have his own personality, basically. And he's there with you from the beginning of the quest, and you're able to journey to different locations and talk to people. It's the diverse cast of characters and the way the story is written that kind of pulls you in this one. They've definitely created something special in the game world in this. It's very futuristic, sci-fi, kind of gritty, kind of has that same feel that Snatcher has. Voice acting is superb. It propels the story along, the twists and turns, the mystery, everything is told very well. It's a very enjoyable story. Absolutely loved my time with 2064. Valhalla is definitely an interesting game as well. Nothing I've played like it to this day. This game takes place in rundown Glitch City. Now, this city is kind of overrun by giant corporations, corruption, greed, a shortage of food. It's kind of like a dystopian future, and in this game you play as a bartender that works in Valhalla. And the game doesn't have dialogue choices and branching paths based on dialogue like most visual novels do. What makes this game tick is its mixing of drinks and the serving of customers. So people are going to come into your bar, all different kinds of people. They're going to have different personalities, different plights, different reasons for doing what they do, and you interact with all of them. And the way that the dialogue unfolds and the way that the game moves forward is by the way you make their drinks, the way you serve them drinks, your choice in drinks, and how they receive them. That kind of alters the dialogue path and the way the game unfolds. Definitely a great story being told, a really diverse cast of characters in this as well. Very professional writing, a great storytelling in this, and it's definitely a different take on a visual novel, being able to use the basis for serving drinks and getting people to relax and unwind and get a little buzzed and just listen to their stories and everyday lives and what's occurring in their world. It's just an interesting game, very fascinating, great execution, a fantastic visual novel. Broken Age is a fine return to form for Tim Schafer. This guy did Grim Fandango, Full Throttle, Day of the Tentacle, so he knows how to make graphic novel point-and-click game. The story is definitely the high point in this, and it's basically centered around two teens that are trying to break the traditional mold of everyday routine. Shay is the first character that I played as, and he is on this spaceship with his overprotective mother, kind of like a computer program that watches his every move, will not let him out of her sight. She is constantly hovering over him, making sure that he's safe, nothing happens. She sets him up on these missions that are all like foolproof, that are just no way he's ever going to get hurt or be in any real danger, and he's just so bored with this everyday routine that he cannot wait to break out of this and try something new and kind of sneak out of her sights and get into some more mischief or trouble, and it definitely comes looking for him, and he finds it. The other playable character is Vela, who is a teenage girl living in the Badlands, and this land is kind of cursed because these creatures named Mogs come around every couple of years, and they come and take teenage girls rituals, and they offer them for sacrifice. And Vela is sick to death of this tradition, and she wants to find any way out of it to avoid this, stop this ritual from happening, and continue her life without fear. Very much like Full Throttle, this game just pulled me in. The story had me hooked. I absolutely fell in love with the visual style. Very atmospheric. It takes you into this world. The voice acting keeps you engaged in the story. The characters and writing is so strong. This guy knows how to make visual novels, and this is a fine return to form. Production value is through the roof. This is an absolutely amazing game and a great return to form. I hope this guy continues to make more of these visual novels because this is top notch. On to some more visual novels. Now, unlike Dank and Ropa and the Xero Escape series, these are all visual novels in the purest form, which means very little gameplay, a lot of reading. It takes a certain kind of gamer to appreciate these titles because there's not a lot of action. It's like reading a good book with kind of like some choose your own adventure elements. I'm going to try to move through these fairly quickly because, let's be honest, this would take a whole video by itself just going through all these visual novels. Most play out in the same fashion where you're reading over and over again and you make different choices at different key points in the story that can alter it, take you on a different path. There's often a flow chart that keeps track of all the decisions you've made and the people you've chose to associate with, because a lot of these have decisions to make in terms of which character you choose to be with or go with, and it alters the story based on those decisions. Whether you're playing a game like Chaos Child, which is a very dark visual novel, bizarre murders taking place in Shibuya City. You play as a teen in high school, a member of your newspaper club. This game focuses on your choices of thought. You could choose a more positive path, you can take a negative path, or you can stick to reality, all having different outcomes in the story. A very dark, mature, and often violent visual novel. I thoroughly enjoyed Chaos Child. Noir 9 was one that I didn't enjoy as much as I thought I would. You play as a student on a field trip, and you're kind of transported back to this fantasy land, and it's all about the different 9 choices you can take, 9 different people to interact with, and which choices you take and which route ends up going, and which story unfolds. It's still really interesting, and I played it towards the end, but not one of my favorites. X Malice is one of my favorites that I've played so far, taking place in Tokyo. There's a group called Adonis, a terrorist group, and they're terrorizing the city. They're committing murders each month, and they base these murders on things that they perceive to be worthy of murder, whether it's a crooked cop, serial stalker, and they keep promising that on January 1st, it's called X Day, and it's going to kind of reshape Tokyo, wipe everything out, and restart from new. You play the game as a police officer who's been kidnapped and has a collar placed around her neck. After narrowly being rescued, it's up to you to try to get this collar off your neck without dying, because it will kill you with poison, all the while preventing X Day from happening and shutting down the terrorist group Adonis. Another really adult storyline, a great police story, some violent deaths, some violent crimes. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with X Malice, a very powerful visual novel. Period Cube has you looking for your brother who has disappeared, all the while getting addicted to this MMO called Arcadia. Different servers that you play on, at least different story paths, and if you die in a certain server, you can die in the real world. A really interesting game that mixes up kind of video game elements with loss of loved ones. A really interesting story. Period Cube is pretty enjoyable. Code Realized Guardian was one of my favorites that I played early on in the Vita. Plays this girl who's been locked away. Her father has told her that she is a beast, not capable of being loved, that she is poison. Anybody that touches her will die, because her father has put this serum inside of her to where it melts flesh. A really tragic and sad tale. This girl's been isolated for so long, and it's all about the personalities of the different suitors that are there to rescue her. Really cool, multiple routes to choose from depending on which suitor you choose. Code Realized games are very well written and very much enjoyable. Psycho Pass is a really nice limited edition here, and this is a really cool story kind of concept and setting. In the future, the police are able to monitor the entire population's mental state, pointing out individuals who are likely to commit a crime. Now, obviously, this has led to a drastic decrease in crime, almost a 0% crime rate, but it's also led to people being arrested and convicted for crimes they didn't commit, and it's kind of causing some upheaval among the people. I thoroughly enjoyed the presentation, the gritty, futuristic atmosphere, this world that's been created where people can be punished without committing a crime. I thought was fascinating, and just how awful that would be and how much turmoil it would create. This game explores those themes and much more. Great writing, great cast of characters. I thoroughly enjoyed Psycho Pass. Some more visual novel love. Forgive my pronunciation. The Utamoaru, The Mask of Deception and Mask of Truth. These are great visual novels that add some extra flair by having a full-fledged strategy RPG battle system like Fire Emblem Shining Force, combining that with storytelling of visual novels. It's a really nice combination. It works well for these games, adds some nice production value. It definitely livens the games up by giving you some actual physical tactile battles to take place in. All the while, the storytelling is top-notch. The first game has you playing as an amnesiac boy who wakes up and meets this kind of beast girl who is stronger than shit, and it thrusts him into a world and a war he's not ready for. A lot of great humor unfolds. The storyline is very well written. I really fell in love with this series. A great entertaining batch of games with a great battle system. The Steins Gate series is one of the most highly regarded visual novels out there. This is Steins Gate and then Steins Gate Zero. I played through the first one and I really enjoyed the futuristic kind of time travel themed, very adult told story. The writing was top notch, the characters were great. I haven't had a chance to play Zero yet. I started off maybe the first hour of it so far, but the first one definitely lived up to the hype and all of the good praise that I've heard about it. Steins Gate was a fantastic game, and I'm really looking forward to the second one. Bad Apple Wars had my attention right from the get-go. On your first day of school, you die in a horrible car accident, and you appear in this Nevia Academy, where you're told if you behave and follow the rules, you'll be able to graduate and kind of restart life. A really cool concept involving the afterlife, choices you make, and being able to start anew, fresh. All kinds of twists and turns happen in this, some great characters once again. I absolutely love the concept and execution of Bad Apple Wars, a great visual novel. The X series, we've got Code Embryo and Lost Memories. This is a really cool visual novel series that is set in the BlazBlue universe, taking place hundreds of years before the fighting game series. Great storylines and writing, top-notch production value. These games are very interesting with some really cool gameplay mechanics. The first game had a really cool hook where you have to follow the story in the game and you are able to look at different articles and you have to spot the article that is fake and has nothing to do with the real story. The choices you make depicting the correct articles move the story along. If you're a fan of BlazBlue, definitely check out the X-Blaze series. So the last of the visual novels, we've got the 3 games from Axis. I remember like a year or two ago, they had like the Summer of Axis visual novels where if you bought all 3 of these games, then you got like a free collector pin set, which was pretty cool. And I really enjoyed all 3 of these games. The first one I played was Psychedelica of the Black Butterfly, and I absolutely fell in love with this game and ended up playing it like 4 different times to get all the endings. You play as a character who wakes up in a mansion and she has no idea how she got there. It's very dark and she's very alone. It's a very creepy place. And you meet these other people that are in there, these different guys, and you don't know them at first. And as the story unfolds, you realize that you've known them for quite some time and you're not sure if you're alive or dead or who they are or what's going on. The game also has some shooting sections that help break up the monotony of just reading constantly. Overall, a very dark, ominous, depressing tone. I couldn't get enough of this game. As the story unfolds, you figure out who these people are, what's happened, and why you're there. An amazing game with a great twist ending. Seven Scarlet was a really cool game as well. You play as a character who is looking for her brother who disappeared in this town that's shaped like a crescent moon. When you get to this town, you realize that all is not right. The mysterious and haunting problems that have plagued this town, you find out all about. You find out why your brother's been missing and what's been going on in this town. Mystery novel done right. This has got amazing writing. I fully was immersed in this mystery and it did not let up until the very end. And then Psychedelica of the Ashen Hawk. This was kind of a throwback to a medieval, almost Game of Thrones style setting where there's different houses and factions that are vying for power. As you get to know the people, watching how they react to certain situations and dealing with consequences, fate, and betrayal. Overall, a very well told game, a great setting. I loved all 3 of these games. They were great games from Axis. Tokyo Ghost Hunter is a visual novel combined with one of the most difficult and strange battle systems I've seen yet. Hunting ghosts for this spirit organization is very confusing. I tried to get into it. I tried to like it. I really did enjoy the atmosphere, the scary setting, and some of the visual novel sections where you're just talking and getting story information. But the battle system threw me off. I don't think I'll ever get a grasp on it. Maybe I'll come back to it someday, but very confusing. After hearing countless times that the Muv-Luv games are some of the best visual novels ever made, I was finally able to pick them up for a decent price. Very much looking forward to starting this epic and watching the tale unfold over the 2 games. I've heard nothing but good things and I cannot wait to get started on this. And finally, we've got The Wolf Among Us. If you guys have played any of the Walking Dead games or the Tales from the Borderlands, you guys know how these games play. Telltale did a masterful job of bringing back the point-and-click genre, adding in a lot of action elements, some great gameplay elements, very adult storytelling, taking place in a fantasy world where fairy tale creatures are able to disguise themselves using glimmer, keeping them hidden from the human characters. A great violent story that unfolds with twists and turns, and you are in control of the action. Telltale made some amazing point-and-click games. If you're into quirky Japanese games that definitely aren't afraid to show a little flesh, you've come to the right place in the Vita. Valkyrie Drive, Liberators Edition. You'll have to forgive my pronunciation. Very much like Senran Kagura, I believe. This is kind of like a Dynasty Warriors brawler, crowd-based beat 'em up where you've got tons of enemies on screen. The twist on this is that you've got a partner fighting alongside you that can be used as a weapon, and you can power her up. The more she's powered up, the more clothes come off, and some really cool effects that are used as weapons. Tons of giant boobs, big butts, good-looking girls, tons of enemies on screen, some great combat, and the clothes do fly off as damage is taken. The clothes fly off and special moves are presented. It's just overall definitely a Japanese game for those that like that kind of thing. I absolutely adore it. I think it's great beat 'em up action. The combat's really good in this. Bullet Girls Fantasia is much of the same. Swap out the more melee stuff with guns and gunplay in this. The clothes fly off as well. Really solid mechanics, good visuals, a lot of fun to play. Drive Girls is definitely the oddest of the 3. You play as different girls that all transform into different vehicles, cars. They've all got different weapons that they wield, different strengths and weaknesses. You travel through some pretty mundane stages. They all look the same, and it's kind of the same thing repeated over and over again. And you're fighting wave after wave of the same enemies. So it's definitely very repetitive, but it's pretty cool. It's a novel idea to be able to transform as like a hot chick into a car. And the combat's pretty good in both forms. You can kind of whip your car around and smash them into the enemies, and you can kind of wield these different weapons and transform on the fly between the two forms. So it's definitely quirky, it's out there. It's not the greatest game, but it's still a lot of fun. If you're a fan of the Monster Hunter games, you've definitely got a lot to love in the Vita. This is Tukiden Kwami and Tukiden 2. These games are very much like Monster Hunter, except they have a very strong story that's very interesting. Instead of fighting monsters, you're going to be fighting Japanese Oni, and it's definitely rooted in Japanese folklore and history. The Onis themselves are giant demons that are just so cool to fight, and it's so much fun to team up with a friend. A great selection of weapons, and the story is definitely a highlight in this kind of game, which you don't really get from a Monster Hunter game. A great tale unfolds, a great backstory. The games are highly playable, tons of fun to play online with friends. They're incredibly addictive, and they will keep you busy for hours and hours online, hacking and slashing away at these Oni. Definitely for fans of Monster Hunter, check out the Tukiden series. A couple of racing games in the Vita. Now, I do have Ridge Racer, but I cannot find it for the life of me somewhere. It's here, but it's a very good version of Ridge Racer. Light on content, not many tracks, but the gameplay is there, and that's what counts, and it is a great port of Ridge Racer on the Vita. Now, we've got Need for Speed Most Wanted. This is how you do a racing game right. Criterion themselves did this version. They didn't farm it out to another company and did cheap cash in. They handled the port themselves, and it shows. Top quality form racing in this. The graphics are unbelievable. Sense of speed is amazing. Need for Speed Most Wanted was one of my favorites. Chasing down all those Most Wanted cars is a lot of fun. There hasn't been much downsizing in this port. I do notice a lot less traffic on the streets, which is fine by me. It's less shit to crash into. Still that great sense of speed and great playability. Need for Speed Most Wanted on the Vita is an amazing technical feat. Sonic Racing Transformed is a great port of the second game in the series for the Sonic Racing. Finally, Mario had some competition with the release of the first Sonic Racing game. This is great kart racing. This one adds a twist of being able to transform, going from ground to land to air. The transitions are seamless. There's a lot of great Sonic characters, great Sonic love. The gameplay is still there. Power sliding is a ton of fun. Great weapons. It's a great kart racer with some really innovative transformations. A lot of fun. If you're a fan of fighting games, the Vita's got something for you, definitely. From Capcom, we've got 2 in the Versus series, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and then Street Fighter Cross Tekken. This adds so many characters from the Marvel and Capcom universe. It's a very solid port, very impressive. The graphics are ungodly good. It looks amazing in action. It amazes me that they're able to fit all of this action into a small Vita cart. It looks stunning on the OLED display. All of the characters from the console versions. Great combos, insane moves that can just be chained together just through the roof. Street Fighter Cross Tekken is much more subdued, but it does combine 2 of fighting games' best rosters into one package. Some really cool extras. This is a great game, very skill-based. I absolutely love the Street Fighter and Tekken games, so it's a perfect win for me. Dead or Alive 5 Plus is a great port, an enhanced port of Dead or Alive 5. I've always loved Dead or Alive's approach to combat. You can dish out tons of offense, and you're also able to take incoming shit and reverse it and use it to your fortune. With well-timed presses, you can reverse any attack that's coming at you and just lay the ass whooping down. Absolutely love the fighting system in this. The stages are all multi-layered, so you can knock them off a cliff and jump down and continue fighting. Very visually impressive, a great cast of characters. Dead or Alive has always been at the top of the fighting games for me. This is a great entry in the series. Man, I knew this was going to be a long one. I hope you guys have enjoyed what you've seen so far. I really wanted to try to get this all in one video. Unfortunately, we've still got a giant stack of RPGs, tons of limited editions to get through. So unfortunately, it's going to have to be a 2-parter, which I'm working on right now as you're watching this. We've still got a lot of great games to get through. Some of my personal favorites. Lost Dimension, a great strategy RPG mixed with visual novel elements. Exist Archive, a fantastic RPG from the makers of Valkyrie Profile. Tons of great shooters, platformers, amazing limited editions. The Vita's got so much more, and we've got so much more to go. Please stay tuned. Part 2 is coming very soon. I want to thank you guys for watching. As always, Games of War is absolutely nothing without you.